all friendships are created equal. And I think you know what I mean by that. There are family and friends that you love dearly and you would do anything for them. But you would never dream, you would cry at their funeral when they died, but you would never dream of asking them to go on a vacation with you because they drive you crazy. And there are some friendships that actually transcend the blood bonds. I've had friends that I've been closer to me than my own brothers. And some of you have had those experiences, I know, no doubt. And I have had several Muslim friends that fit that category. And one of them was a wonderful Palestinian man that I will call Muhammad. That's not his real name, but I changed names to protect the innocent, so to speak. But his name was Muhammad, and Muhammad and I became like brothers. After I started going to the mosque regularly with my friend Abdullah, who I told you about Abdullah, he's one of those that transcended blood relationships and became like a brother. After I started going to the mosque regularly with Abdullah, I met this man. He introduced me to this man by the name of Muhammad. And Muhammad and I became fast friends. I would eat in his house. He would eat in my house. Our families would get together and hang out. And he was just an amazing guy. He was also what I would call the public political face of Islam in our city. Whenever the media had a question about Islam, they always called Muhammad and asked him what he thought, what his thoughts were. And he was just so good at articulating himself and his words and building bridges between the Muslim community and non-Muslim community. You just couldn't help but like him. But Muhammad also suffered from what his friends would say he had ADHD. He was very hyperactive, high energy, always moving his hands, and he was just all over the map. And they would even give him, when he had to do a public speech, sometimes he would take a stopwatch with him, so he would be sure to stop at the right time and not talk too long. So he was just a great guy. And I know that in Muslim circles, a lot of circles, men and women don't shake hands, they don't touch, they don't hug. And Muhammad was like that at first, but we transcended that. And I'll never forget one time we were at a mosque, and by this time our families are very close. And he hugged me when I was leaving, and my wife was standing there, and she said, "Muhammad, if you weren't a Muslim, I would give you a hug." And he'd say, "Okay, go ahead, give me a hug real quick while nobody's looking." See, we transcended. We became more like family, and he was able to love, and I was able to love him. He was an amazing guy. But one of the things I really appreciate about Muhammad was his raw honesty. He would not hide the weaknesses of his community. And let's be honest, our religious communities, both Christian and Muslim, we have a lot of problems. And I'll hear Muslims say, "Oh, our community is perfect." I'll hear Christians say, "Our community is perfect." No, they're not. We are human beings. We're flawed. We're weak. We all have the same problems. We all have the same issues we struggle with. I mean, we're not that different. And so sometimes after Friday prayer, Muhammad and I would eat together. And even though I was a Christian, he would open his heart to me about the struggles in his community. And he would say, "Jeff, I get so frustrated with my Muslim brothers and sisters. Sometimes I want to just convert to another religion. I'm thinking about becoming a Jew or maybe a Christian or a Buddhist. What do you think?" And I would just laugh because I'm saying I'm not going to touch that one. But what he was really saying is we have problems, and I get frustrated with them. And is the grass greener over in your community? Is it better somewhere else than ours? But he never meant it. I know he never meant that. Whatever dream of changing his faith, all he was doing was venting his frustrations with a friend. And even though I was a Christian, he was sharing those frustrations with me. One day he invited me to come to his house to have tea and baklava. I was relaxed and laid back, and I was looking forward to it. And I went over, and next thing I know, he calls his son in. And we're having tea, and I didn't realize I was being set up. And he said, "Jeff, what do you think of a son who doesn't listen to his father?" And I'm like, "Ooh, wow." He's asking me a question. What do you think of a son who doesn't listen to his father? And the son was as surprised as I was. And he goes, "What are you talking about, Dad?" And then the next thing I know, they were going at it for a little while. I'm just sitting there drinking my tea and eating my baklava. And I was listening because I'm a life coach, and I was listening to the argument. And finally I said, "I think what your dad is trying to say is he really loves you and he cares about you. And he thinks you're making some poor decisions right now." And his son looks at his father and says, "Is that true? Is that what you're trying to say?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say." He goes, "Dad, I love you too. Why didn't you just come out and say it?" I had become more than a friend to Muhammad. And he had become more than a friend to me. And we had become like brothers. And so we could do these kind of things. These are what things do. And I tell Muslims and Christians who do dialogue is great. But until you're eating in each other's homes and your children are playing together, you're just having a nice talk. It's got to go beyond that. One time he got into an argument with another Muslim, and he didn't feel like this Muslim was doing enough for the community. And I kind of got caught in the middle of that. And I said, I don't think Muhammad meant the things he said. And then I went to him and he goes, that's exactly what I meant. And I thought, I'm staying out of that one. But he felt close to me enough to be able to vent, to be a brother. And I believe that's where God wants to take us all as Muslims and Christians. He wants us to have those kind of relationships. But you know the thing I admired most about Muhammad, and this one might surprise you, but this is the thing that stands out the most to me about our friendship. Muhammad comes from an old Palestinian family in Gaza. His family's had leadership that goes all the way back to the time of the Ottomans. But Muhammad, in spite of the occupation and some of the things that's happened there, with the bad things that's happened in Gaza, Muhammad never hated Jews. He may have disagreed with what was happening, but he never hated Jews. And that stood out. I would see his heart broken over his people. I would see his heart break over their suffering. But he still tried to build a bridge in our community to the Jewish community. He got very close to one of the rabbis, and he said to me, this so-and-so is my rabbi, and Jeff, you are my Christian minister. And we transcended something, and that changed my life. I look at that and say, here's a man whose people are suffering, but yet he's choosing to love his neighbor as himself. That's what I learned from Muhammad. And you know, speaking of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be to him, I found this quote, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Prophet Muhammad was said to have said, none of you have faith until you love for your neighbor, what you love for yourself. He's saying you don't have true faith if you don't love your neighbor as yourself. You're not a true Muslim. Whoever wishes to be delivered from fire and enter paradise should treat the people as he wishes to be treated. He says, if you want to go into paradise, you better be treating people the way you want to be treated. None of you believes, Prophet Muhammad said, peace be to him, until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. You know what? Jesus said the same thing. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and all your soul, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. And if you find enemies along the way, do everything within your power to make them your friends. This is the heart of faith. We are not true Muslims, and we are not true Christians until we love each other as neighbors and treat each other the way we want to be treated. And I learned that from my dear friend Muhammad, watching him love other people. Have a good day and tune in for next time.